Clicking live. Good morning, and welcome to First Universalist Church of Yarmouth. My name is Kai Fast. I'm a member of the Tech Crew and Worship Council. Welcome. I'm happy to be greeting you this morning. At First Universalist, our mission is to explore our faith, embrace this community, and to engage the world as spiritual seekers. May we take those words to heart. As we gather today, we acknowledge that our church and many of our homes are built on the ancestral land of the Wabanaki. We acknowledge the continued displacement and oppression of Indigenous people in Maine and across the country. And we stand in support of their commitments to survival, sovereignty, identity, and the protection of our world. One way we've recently honored this commitment was by forgiving a $10,000 loan we gave to the Giving Winds Project, which raises funds to facilitate home and small business loans to Wabanaki people who, without land sovereignty, are not eligible for traditional mortgages and loans. We are grateful for the work of Giving Winds. We are grateful for the work of Giving Winds and honored to participate in their project to support Indigenous people in Maine. And as we now begin our service, I invite you all to take a deep breath with me. And settle into this sacred space and time. Reverend Hillary will now lead us into worship.
Thank you, Kai. And thank you, Sam, for that beautiful prelude. And thank you, Pete, who was filming Sam in our sanctuary this morning. Good morning. How are you? My name is Hillary Collins-Gilpatrick. I'm the minister of First Universalist Yarmouth, and it's with great joy that I say, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, whatever you've done, whether you come alive this blossoming, blooming time of year, or whether you come down with terrible allergies, you are welcome here. And we're so glad you're here. On beautiful spring days, such as the ones we're having this weekend, it's easy to turn our attention to the wonder and brilliance of nature. And today, in our service, as we continue to explore our monthly theme of story, we'll consider how the workings and cycles of the natural world can help interrupt us when we are lost in fantastical narratives of our own making. Our opening words this morning are from Robin Wall Kimmerer, award-winning writer, biologist, mother, and citizen of the Potawatomi Nation of the Great Plains. These words are from her much beloved book, Braiding Sweetgrass. My copy is pretty well worn. And the subtitle of Braiding Sweetgrass is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. She writes, "We are all bound by a covenant of reciprocity. Plant breath for animal breath, winter and summer, predator and prey, grass and fire, night and day, living and dying. Water knows this, clouds know this, soil and rocks know they are dancing in a continuous giveaway of making, unmaking, and making the earth again. The moral covenant of reciprocity calls us to honor our responsibilities for all we have been given and for all we have taken. It's our turn now, long overdue. Let us hold a giveaway for Mother Earth, spread our blankets out for her, and pile them high with gifts of our own making, gifts of mind, hands, heart, voice, and vision, all offered up on behalf of the earth. Whatever our gift, we are called to give it and to dance for the renewal of the world in return for the privilege of breath." Good morning, my friends. How privileged we are to be alive, feeling, sensing, and breathing together this morning. Let's make the most of it, shall we? As I light the symbol of our faith, I invite you to join me in our chalice lighting words. We light our chalice in peace and friendship. Our opening hymn is a favorite of mine. Thanks for playing it today, Sam. It's entitled Bright Morning Stars, and it's number 357 if you have a hymnal.
Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. Day is a breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul.
Thank you, Sam. Friends, we now come to the time in our service that we set aside for quiet prayer and meditation. If you're listening while working on a project or eating or drinking or walking around, I invite you during this time to set down what's in your hands and just let yourself relax and be still for a moment. This is a time in our service to offer a prayer for those in need of a prayer. Reflect on the events of the past week, look forward to what might come in the days ahead, or simply be here now, in this moment, and all it offers in sensations and emotions. Before we enter our time of silence, I offer 3 prayers into the world from my heart. The first is a prayer of peace, and care for the loved ones and the neighbors of the 12 Israelis and over 170 Palestinians who've been killed in airstrikes this week. Many of these deaths were civilians and many were children. If nothing else right now, may a ceasefire be reached today in Israel and Gaza. I offer a second prayer for the loved ones of a family that was in a terrible car crash on Route 1 outside of Brunswick Friday night, and a mighty prayer of comfort and love to the young boy, the sole survivor of the crash, who lost his parents and sister that night. And finally, a prayer in response to the CDC's new guidelines regarding the freedom of vaccinated people to go living without masks. May we continue at this time to act with care and patience, knowing that not everyone is vaccinated yet, nor does everyone feel safe with this new mandate. Let's take care of ourselves right now and continue to respect one another's needs as we've done so compassionately this year. Okay, my friends, won't you join me now in taking a deep breath in, exhaling out, and joining me for a sacred time of quiet. For all that can be shared, for all we hold inside, for all we simply do not have the words to explain. We hear you, we hold you, and we wish you immediate comfort, continued joy, a path forward, and the seeds of peace. Amen. Kai will now introduce our offering. Thank you, Kai.
In honor of our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, this week's half plate will be shared with In Her Presence. Organized and led by immigrant women living in Maine, In Her Presence strives to bring together immigrant women from across the communities and generations to ensure that Maine's economic agenda includes the aspirations and needs of immigrant women. Toting the slogan, "Out of the shadow and onto the stage," the group hosts English language classes and a variety of educational workshops to provide a platform for Maine immigrant women to better integrate and succeed here in Maine. You are invited to make your offering using the donate button in the order of worship. By clicking this link, you will be taken to Give Butter, a virtual giving site that accepts a card number, PayPal, and Venmo accounts. You may also give your offering by dropping a check in the mail or using your bank's free bill pay feature.
Bright is the ring of words when the right man rings
Thanks, Sam. Our reading this morning is a poem by Ada Limon, a contemporary poet I'm pretty obsessed with these days. The poem I'm sharing with you this morning is entitled Dandelion Insomnia. The big bees are back, tipsy, sun-drunk, and heavy, with thick knitted leg warmers of pollen. I was up all night again, so today's yellow hours seem strange and hallucinogenic. The neighborhood is lousy with mowers, crazy dogs, and people mending what winter ruined. What I can't get over is something simple, easy. How could a dandelion seed head seemingly grow overnight? A neighbor mows the lawn and bam, the next morning, there's 100 dandelion seed heads, straight as arrows and proud as cats, high above any green blade of manicured grass. It must bug some folks, a flower so tricky it can reproduce asexually, making perfect identical selves. Bam, another me. Bam, another me. Bam, another me. I can't help it. I root for that persecuted rosette, so hyper in its own making, it seems to devour the land. Even its name, translated from the French, dent de lion, means dandelion's tooth. It's vicious, made for a time that requires tenacity, a way of remaking the toughest self while everyone else is asleep. I really like her poetry. Okay, so I was walking my dog, Smokey, the other day. It was one of the few rainy days we've had in the past weeks, days that I found to be quite lovely from inside, with a gentle swish of raindrops against the windows and everything alive outside, getting greener and greener. However, standing on a muddy trail in a cold rain as my greyhound slowly puttered around was somewhat less enjoyable. As some of you know, Smokey was diagnosed with terminal bone cancer about a month ago. The diagnosis came out of nowhere and was a pretty devastating blow to me and many folks who know Smokey. The epicenter of her cancer is in her right shoulder, and it's caused her right front leg to go lame. As it goes with sickness, my hound has her good, silly, trouncing days and has her bad, limping, whining days. This particular rainy day wasn't a very good day. Smokey was pretty out of it. I drove her over to one of her favorite wooded trails, thinking maybe a car ride, which she loves, and some off-leash time might perk her up, but it didn't really. As I stood in the rain, watching my poor hound stumble around, I was feeling pretty sad and pretty sorry for her and for me. I decided we should probably just go back home. As we turned, I looked up and saw a person walking our way and a little white dog trailing behind. Smokey noticed them too and perked right up, her 23-inch long tail whipping into the air as she watched carefully as they approached. The person gave a wave. Dog people signal for, it's okay, we're friendly. And it's a signal I swear Smokey's learned over the years, because as soon as she was given the go-ahead, she galloped down the path, flexing the muscles of her good leg to propel herself forward as she flailed her bad leg off to the side. Well, look at you go, the person who I could now see was an older woman called to her. She has a bad leg, huh? Yeah. My dog has a bad front leg too. It's from tumors. Oh, I'm so sorry, I replied. Mine has tumors in her bones too. What are the chances, right? I was standing fairly close to the woman at this point. She wasn't wearing a mask, and looking at her face, I was struck by how beautiful she was. She was older than I first thought, easily in her 80s, and she had piercingly pale blue eyes and wisps of ghost white hair that shaped her features. She reminded me of Maggie Smith or Katharine Hepburn, someone with a regal air. She also was quite tall, 3 or 4 inches taller than me, so she looked down at me as we talked, only compounding her dignified presence further. Your dog is very beautiful, even only on 3 legs. Thanks. I bent down and gave her dog an ear scratch. He was a Bichon mutt of sorts, white curly hair, short little legs, and an adorable yet fierce underbite. His belly was covered in mud. It seemed to make more sense that my elegant blue brindle greyhound would belong to this stately woman, but I appreciated that her beloved companion came in the form of this muddy little guy. Yours seems to be enjoying life on 3 legs as well, I said. She and I chatted for a bit about dogs and spring, and then got quiet. For several minutes, we stood there together, this woman and I, in silence, in the pouring rain, watching our animal friends hobble around together. The 2 of them seemed quite unbothered by their physical limitations, quite unbothered by the rain, and not particularly sad nor sorry in the least. I think there's a lot I can learn from my dog right now, I said out loud, breaking our silence. The woman glanced at me and nodded slightly, knowingly. The rain is lovely, isn't it? She replied a few seconds later. And it was. Our dogs had parted ways and were beckoning their human companions to follow them in opposite directions. The woman and I exchanged shrugs, expressing the time had come to carry on. Thank you, she said to me with a gentle smile. I caught myself staring at her striking face for an extra beat and then replied, it was nice to talk with you. We walked a handful of paces away from one another. Smokey, re-energized by the interaction, was trompsing ahead of me. Hey! I turned, surprised. The woman was a ways down the path, her arms outstretched. You know, it's not perfect, but it's not bad, she yelled at me, smiling and looking up at the trees. You're right. That's right. That's right, I yelled back, throwing my hands up in the air. We waved and turned to continue walking in our opposite directions. My mood had totally shifted, my doldrums interrupted, and a calm setting over my body and mind. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad, I repeated out loud to myself. Who was that woman? Looking over my shoulder a minute or so later, she was gone, vanished into the mist of the spring forest. Friends, I'm well aware that over the course of the past few months, I've encouraged you to really feel what it feels like to be alive over and over again, to feel it as you do the dishes, to feel it as you experience grief and hope at once, to feel it as you offer loving kindness prayers to friends and enemies, to feel it as you re-enter the world or resist re-entering the world right now. And though I continue to be a major proponent of feeling it, I have noticed lately, while trying to practice what I preach, that really feeling all these feelings throughout our living days can sometimes feel like a bit much. Turns out, feeling alive comes with a lot of feelings and stories. I've noticed as I've played around with this practice that when I lift my awareness to the feelings of the moment at hand, I tend to turn my feelings pretty quickly into a narrative, a storyline that stretches back to previous times in my life I've felt a similar feeling, and then goes hurtling into the unknown future, telling a vivid tale of all the things that will naturally follow this current feeling. This propulsive narrative, though driven by whatever I'm feeling in a moment, never ends up helping me feel more alive in the not perfect but not bad moment at hand. I've discovered one way to interrupt my ever stretching, tragic, dramatic, comedic, thrilling storylines is by reminding myself that there's no use in writing this story out, because I don't know what's going to happen. And rather than fretting over and over about what might happen next, I find it's useful to come back to the question, what's happening in this moment right now? I don't know. It's just this I've been reciting as a mantra. Don't know. Just this. Don't know. Just this. I don't know what Smokey's end will be like or feel like, but right now we're enjoying each other's company, taking a mellow walk in the spring green forest. Not perfect, not bad. A couple of years ago, I had the great fortune of attending a conversation at Harvard between three environmental writers and thinkers: Terry Tempest Williams, Richard Powers, and Robin Wall Kimmerer. And just as an aside, I recently discovered a recording of this talk online. And if you're curious to check it out, just Google Tales of Sweetgrass and Trees 2019. It's pretty great. It's worth your time, as I'm sure many of you can imagine. In the conversation, there were lighthearted moments and soul-nourishing moments, but much of the discussion between these three environmentalists revolved around how to manage the grief that comes with environmental justice right now. In these times of despair and overwhelm, Robin Wall Kimmerer reminded the audience to use nature as a guide. Get in the way of nature, she directed us. Let nature get in your way. Look to the stillness and presence of trees as a guide to honoring relationships. Look to the pollinators who thrive in meadows filled with diverse, brightly colored flowers. Look at the nature of life on this earth and how natural and healthy it is for one thing to become another. In essence, Kimmerer was directing us to interrupt our sad, sorry stories. And sometimes just feel this, see this, be here, just this. There's so much to learn from the moment at hand. One of my favorite parts of nature, Kimmerer said, is how often it calls us to get down on our knees and have a closer look. The forest, the ocean, the beautiful, intricate moss on a stone calls us to be still, magnify, see, and feel. The words rolled from her mouth like a firm and direct meditation. Be still, magnify, see, feel. She explained, it is through a conscious feeling presence that we will feel called not to turn away or cling to our individual perspective, but rather to acknowledge the pain, joy, sorrow, beauty, and brokenness around us. It is through conscious presence that mutual healing will occur between ourselves and others, and ourselves and nature. Conscious presence. Be still, magnify, see, feel. I attended that talk with my friend Jenny. She's a farmer and herbalist. Robin Wall Kimmerer is one of her heroes. And Jenny, she was the first person who taught me about dandelions, how they, and most of the plants we'd call weeds, chickweed, mint, mullein, are natural detoxifiers. That's why we often see them growing in pavement cracks or breaking through that artificial red mulch and parking lot median strips. These plants are medicinal. They heal. They restore sick habitats. They bring things back into balance. They are, as Ada Limon writes, made for times that require tenacity. Since Jenny told me about the detoxifying properties of dandelions years ago, I've come to love this time of year when dandelions suddenly are just everywhere. Bam, another one, bam, another one, bam, another one. It feels like a big time of post-winter healing, a time when nature is pulling together all of its resources to bring everything back into balance, including us. There are dandelions now all along that path where I ran into that beautiful, beautiful woman and her muddy little dog. Smokey and I walked it yesterday. She was having an okay day. I was feeling everything, sad and happy, worried about the news, wondering and thinking about many of you. I didn't know what would happen next, but in that yellow and green moment at hand, if I could return to it, I noticed that no, nothing was perfect, but it really wasn't that bad. It was just this. It was just this. Just this. Don't know. Just this. Be still, my detoxifying dandelion friends. Be still. Magnify, see, and feel this beautiful day, this beautiful life, this beautiful moment. How wonderful it is that we're alive together. Blessed be the privilege of our breath. Blessed be all of those dandelions. Amen. And let it be so. Our closing hymn is number 1053. How could anyone?
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to know
Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Kai. And thank you, Pete. Ooh. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Pete. And thanks to all of you who have joined us this morning. It is a beautiful day outside. I encourage you to get off screen. Somehow we pulled together a shorter service than usual for you, so you can go out and get a little extra vitamin D this morning. And if you'd like to stay on, I'll open up coffee hour in 10 minutes. Before we go our ways, won't you join me in a closing time of prayer? May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings experience profound joy and the causes of profound joy. May we all be free, free to be loved, free to give love, and free to feel all the opportunities there are for love in our lives. And won't you join me now in our unison benediction? For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. For those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Go in peace, my friends, and enjoy that beautiful day out there. We'll see you soon.